This is Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley. I'm the fellow who has a hyphen in my name. The hyphen is silent, but I am anything but that. Respectonomics brings you this episode of Living Attentively. Living attentively, as the word suggests and implies, is paying attention. And when we talk about paying attention, in the world of corporate life, political life, community life, it's important to be paying attention. And that sounds like a great hand-me-down line, to pay attention. We're going to look at this whole idea of paying attention through one venue called listening. My name is Jeremy Wentworth-Stanley. I'm your voice of Respectonomics. I'm also your year of Respectonomics, which means always appreciate hearing your thoughts and ideas backwards. Excuse me. Jeremy at respectonomics.com. Jeremy at respectonomics.com is where I can be reached. And what we're talking about here is the art of listening. The art of listening is, of course, the concept of paying attention to another human being. Now, having said that, before we go to the other human being, let us also be mindful that listening is behavioural. And if listening is behavioural, it is something that we can all do, in the sense that we can hear somebody else's voice, we can hear traffic, we can hear the ticking of a clock, we can hear the whirring of a fridge, we can hear many different things. And experiencing 10 minutes every day to do nothing but listening is a very good exercise to create behaviorally a pattern of listening. During the day, who knows, might even be at nighttime. But when you are paying attention, when you are listening and making it part of your day, there's a much greater chance that you will hear things that you might have otherwise missed. But with this idea of listening, you may wonder, and we may all wonder, what is it in the corporate world that's important about listening? And the first thing is that if one's talking in the narrow sense of the difference between, or the relationship between a manager and a staff member, let's just take that, what you might call the head and the toe. If you think of your body is forever listening to other parts of the body. It may not do it in terms of hearing, but it does it in terms of feeling. So listening isn't just the art of opening your ears, it's also the art of touching, the art of feeling, the art of sensing, the art of drawing alongside somebody. If you think of your body, if you tried to say to yourself, well, I shall ignore that, eventually whatever that is that's causing trouble will usually create even more trouble. So in other words, this is an attitude of listening is made up of being sensitive or attentive to other people. And then you might wonder, why do I need to listen to anybody? And there's some very profound reasons for listening to other people. In the case of an employee, employees are the ones who have their ear closest to the customer. They are usually the ones serving the customer, in which case they have been listening to the customer. The customer has made some recommendations or thoughts or opinions, and we have an opportunity as managers or supervisors to be able to say to people in the staff, what are you hearing? Because those people are hearing it right from the grassroots. When we exhibit a willingness to listen to our staff people, it is also almost a natural flow, it's osmosis, that the employee will then also engage in listening. So listening is almost like it's a great sense of continuity. I listen, you listen, we listen. And when we listen, we then will hear more and more things that are going on. Sometimes we can't even be aware of them. You can look at your own body and you can think to yourself, I don't know what I'm feeling, but I'm hearing something. Hearing or listening are very, very important ingredients to our understanding of another human being. We talk about listening to ourselves. Why don't we therefore use the same technique to listen to others? But when you listen to somebody else, and in the case of the customer, we have already said, is usually approached by a staff member who will therefore know what the customer is thinking, feeling, doing, wanting. What better way of then acknowledging and understanding what those customers' needs are, other than by going to the staff and saying, "What are you hearing?" And when we exhibit this hearing and this intent to listen and intent to hear, we can also find ourselves listening to the customers, we can hear ourselves listening to the shareholders, the investors, and we can hear ourselves listening to the suppliers. So listening it's an attitude, excuse me, it is an attitude, but it's one that has huge rewards in it. And if one thinks about it, it's not a cost. It's just something you do. You just listen. But in order to listen, we all know that what hearing is about. Fortunately, most of us have hearing capacity. We can hear things. And when we hear things, that's one part of the puzzle, the physicality of hearing. But the decision, the intention is, do we take possession? Do we take ownership of what we are hearing? And therein lies the key, that I can hear many, many things. My responsibility is, therefore, or is, to take possession and to take ownership of what I'm hearing. So when I hear somebody saying, "I'm not happy," it's not a time for me to discard it. It's a time for me to take ownership of that unhappiness, to find out what its source is, what its background is, whether it can be remedied, and so on. It's a really, really powerful tool that when we listen, we are in fact taking ownership, we're taking possession. Taking possession, we think in terms of taking possession. It's a very natural thing. People talk about their possessions. This belongs to me. Well, if we can talk about that materially, if we can talk about it emotionally, if we can talk about it in any sense of taking possession or ownership of something, then how much better it would be if we took the same ownership and the same responsibility of possessiveness for other people's ideas and comments, their credits, and the things that they see as being deficient. But there's another part to this, and that is that we can look at this a bit like a satellite. Now, you may wonder, what on the earth does a satellite have to do with listening? But the satellite I'm talking about is, or a spaceship is a better example, it's the one that's returning to Earth. And as it returns to Earth, we've all seen all these movies and scientific explanations about how they blow up. And of course, there are things that, like a heat shield, is put underneath the returning satellite or the returning spaceship so that it doesn't burn up. And we need to have exactly that in our own lives. The problem with other people's ideas, and when we listen to them, is we feel we're burning up. Well, of course, we're not burning up, because we, in fact, are hearing information that is valuable. But in order for that burning sensation not to be one that burns us up, but rather as one that allows us to come back into our regular orbit, we need to understand that what's happening is this. When that satellite, when that spaceship is returning to Earth, when we are returning to Earth, that is when we are starting to face our own realities. One of the problems we encounter is that we can, and often we start thinking about things and we become self-delusional. We start thinking we have all the answers. And the answer is, no, we do not. We need the mirror that is made available to us, rather like a heat shield. We need a mirror that is made available by other people's observations and opinions. And the more we put those feelers out and say, "Tell me what you're hearing," the more that satellite returning to the planet will not burn up. It will, in fact, be able to land with all its contents, with all its vitality and structure intact. So using the mirror as an example of a heat shield is a great way for us to be able to hear other people's ideas. And then we also understand that that spaceship, when it's landing, it comes down gently because it comes down with a parachute. And we need to be sure that our ideas, when we've heard them from somebody else, we can respond, we can be kind of argumentative, or we can respond with gentleness. We can put out a parachute. So when we hear other people's ideas, we now have listened to them, we've used the mirror, we've heard these ideas, and we can be gentle. And we can think of it in terms of putting out a parachute so that we can land safely. Because when that parachute is fully out and we're landing safely, then of course the contents of that spaceship are safe and they're able to be rescued. And this is the last part of that analogy. We can be rescued, that when our spaceship has landed, we haven't burnt up, we've come down gently, and when we are, shall we say, on the water, we need to be rescued. And that is why the value of other people is so important. So we've listened, we haven't burnt up, we've used the mirror on other people. We've used a parachute to come down gently. And as we come down gently and land, bobbing in the water, we can be very mindful of people that will be able to come and collect us and take us back so that we can then be reused. And that's a wonderful idea that all we had to do was to listen, put up a heat shield, we come down gently, and also we expect to be rescued. Sometimes we have to be wait to be rescued, but when we are then brought back to where we can be so useful, all because we engaged in the process of listening. We got into the business of actually saying to the customer, saying to the employee, to the supplier, to the shareholder, to our colleagues, let me have your opinions, because your opinions are a mirror in my life. And the more mirror I have, the safer it can be for me to return to doing the job I'm meant to be doing. And I know that I'm going to be doing this with gentleness. And I also know that I'm going to be doing it in the basis that I'm going to be picked up. I'm going to be more useful to everybody. And that is the value of being rescued by another human being. And it all starts with listening.